Hi everyone, welcome to the Digital Supply Chain Podcast. My name is Tom Raftery, and with me on the show today, I have my special guest, Doug. Doug, welcome back to the podcast. For people who may have missed you previously, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, Tom. Glad to be back. I'm Doug Marinaro. I'm CEO and co-founder of Riptide, three-way text messaging platform for service and delivery.
Okay, superb. So tell me, Doug, we had this conversation before all about Riptide, and it was a fascinating one on the three-way messaging platform that you have. But we've since had a bit of a change in the world, if we want to put it that way, as grandiose as that the world has changed. We've had the launch of ChatGPT, and we've seen how that has changed the world utterly in all kinds of ways. And so I thought it would be interesting because yours is a very text-based service. So I thought it'd be interesting to have you back on to talk about how the likes of ChatGPT and GPT AI models in general are likely to change supply chain. So it's a bit of a broad one, but how is it going to change supply chain, Doug?
Oh, in so many different ways, Tom, in so many different ways. I think the supply chain is the means by which people manufacture and distribute goods and services. But I think in many ways, the supply chain is a uniquely human activity. At every step of the way, people are involved, except for maybe in a lights out warehouse. You have people communicating with each other about the design and manufacture of the things that they're going to be making, about the distribution of those goods, about the availability and distribution of those goods and services to the individual, to the consumers in the end. And at every step of the way, you have communication that's taking place over both, time, different time zones and space, geographies, happening from place to place and in cultures, different languages and all the systems that exist out there to support the supply chain, whether you're talking about SAP and Oracle or a transportation management system or a last mile delivery or customer support. At every step of the way, there's human-computer interaction or human-human interaction. And the ChatGPT tool and discovery has revolutionized human-computer interaction. So I think it's going to impact the supply chain in ways that we cannot even imagine at this time.
Yeah, and we should mention as well that it's not just ChatGPT. Microsoft launched their new Bing recently. I'm not sure if it's generally available yet, but it is certainly available. You can apply to get onto it. And they've had some teething issues with it. Google had serious teething issues, $170 billion worth of teething issues with their Bard launch in Paris a couple of weeks ago. But in general, it speaks to a direction of travel. It means, I did say initially that the world has changed, and that may sound a little bit over the top, but I don't think it is. I think the way we interact with computers is fundamentally going to change off the back of this. Am I exaggerating or do you agree?
I agree. And in our earlier conversation, Tom, you talked to me about how you were one of the early users of ChatGPT as one of these large language models. And I think you gave some pretty good examples of how you were able to use it and tap into it right from the get-go.
Yeah. So one of the first times I tried it, as you say, I was one of the first on. I was there. It launched on November 30th. And if I wasn't on it November 30th, I was on it certainly December 1st or thereabouts. And I remember going to it and being amazed by it, being blown away. And I tried to explain it to my younger son. He's 16 and he wasn't quite getting it. So I pulled it up and I said to him, okay, tell me what you're studying in maths at the moment. And it was some kind of functions I can't remember. So I just typed into ChatGPT, explain these functions in the voice of Hagrid talking to Harry Potter. And out came this fabulous explanation. It read literally just like something out of a Harry Potter book with Hagrid talking to Harry Potter. It was, and my kid's head just exploded. It was just, now that's not That's not a particularly useful use case, I got to think, for the likes of you and I, and for people who are in supply chain listening to this. But it still, it speaks to how imaginative ChatGPT can be, or large language models in general. I'm using it all the time. And I'm using it all the time on these podcasts. And how do I use it on these podcasts? Well, we'll come to some pre stuff in a minute, but I use it on post all the time. And what do I mean by that? I mean, once I've done the editing, what do I do after that? Well, I edit using a program called Descript, which is you throw the audio file in, and the Descript app converts the audio to text. So it does a full transcription, and then you can edit the text and it'll output edited audio. So that's how I do the editing of these podcasts. When I'm finished with the editing, I can then export the audio and publish it. But what I can also do now is I can export the transcription and give it to ChatGPT and say, okay, if I were to write a LinkedIn post to promote this, what would it look like? And boom, it'll give me a sample LinkedIn post for promotion of the podcast, or write 15 tweets for me to promote this podcast, and write them in a first person engaging tone, and be sure to use the word supply chain in the tweet, or something like that, and leave room for a link and an audiogram, and bang, out come 15 potential tweets, that kind of thing. It makes generating social copy, and it's all based on the transcription of the podcast, because the transcription is text. You can feed it to it. You can say, there you go, that's the podcast, go for it, help me generate social copy to help promote this, and boom, the output that I've been able to create as a result of that since ChatGPT came out has been incredible.
First off, it's a great example, and I think it goes to a number of there's a number of topics that come off of everything that you just talked about right there. First of all, for your listeners who want to try it out, yes, I think Microsoft Bing may be expanding its use, but they can also go to openai.com, and at the top it'll say try it. You can go ahead and click on it, and you can just start typing in questions. And so, kind of maybe taking a step back and helping explain to your listeners, when they start to use it, what's happening? What is this AI doing here? Yeah. So, when you're interacting with ChatGPT, you're interacting with a what GPT stands for is, I think I wrote this down, is generative pre-trained transformer. And what these are very, very large math models. And the purpose of the model is simply to predict as accurately as possible the next word that it should say. Yeah. So if you think about when you ask it to go ahead and generate a tweet for you based upon reading the transcript, what it's done is it's taken the knowledge that has already been inserted, it has been embedded into the ChatGPT model. And that knowledge in the ChatGPT 3.5 was roughly the corpus of all human knowledge, everything that had been put up on the web, and all the books that have been put up there, all of Shakespeare's plays and so forth, and in many different languages as well, and processed exabytes of information, processed with petaflops of computation. As I've said to a couple people, Moore's law finally has something to do again now, as opposed to giving us 25 megapixel cameras, which we don't know what to do with anyhow. But so it's processed all that information, and the output of all that of this is a 175 billion parameter model. Just a side note, the human brain has about 100 billion neurons or neuronal connections, I believe, or neurons, not many connections. So there's a slight analogy there. And with that 175 billion parameter model based upon all this text that people have written, what it does is it takes the conversation that you've started and the prompt that you've given it and all that information you've given it up front, and it tries to predict what's the next word it should say back to you.
Yep.
And it is doing that like one word at a time or one sentence at a time, one set of phrases at a time to go ahead and try to predict that. And so in the end, what the discovery that ChatGPT represents is that with a model of about 175 billion parameters trained with a neural network with some human feedback at the very end. So after they ran through all this training, they actually went through and ran the model a couple times and had it answer some prompts, had some humans go through and said, no, that's not the right thing to say. And they proved that with that, you can actually create something that does a really remarkably good job of representing and communicating in human language. And because human language is at the basis of, all of our societies and all of our interactions, this is a pretty amazing discovery. And it's an engineered tool. I mean, this is a feat of engineering, in the same vein as, CRISPR is a feat of genomic engineering and this latest laser fusion capability was a feat of engineering. This is another feat of human engineering, be able to give us this tool that we can use now to generate responses to things that people input in human language in a way that people, to a large degree, won't be able to differentiate between, whether it's a computer saying it or a human saying it. And that's the remarkable thing. And I think that what is always amazing about people is these new kinds of technological revolutions occur, and they've been occurring at a faster and faster rate, but is how fast we all adapt to them. And my next door neighbor is a high school English teacher. And of course, the ones who adapted to this thing immediately in December were his students who were turning in essays generated by ChatGPT in response to the questions he had posed. And so, of course, he figured out, because there was something created using ChatGPT, on how to determine whether the essay was generated by ChatGPT. And he started using that. And then, of course, he turned around and like a day or two later started using it to generate his lesson plans, when he was, give me 5 topics to go ahead and write about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or something like that. Or like yourself, you immediately adapted this new tool and figured out new ways that you could go ahead and use it. I mean, that's I think the brilliance of human intellect here. And I think it calls to the rapidity with which you pick this up and think about how much more effective and productive it made you. Now imagine in the context of supply chain, all the different unforeseen applications of being able to have rapid human-computer interaction at a level that has never been struck before, and the ways that some organizations are going to adapt to it and are going to be able to take advantage of it faster than others, which will give them the ability, for example, to communicate effectively with far more customers in far more scenarios than they have before, to give them a step change improvement in customer satisfaction. Or even in the context of what Riptide does. One of the reasons I was so excited to talk to you about it again is, when we had met, we just introduced the fact that Riptide is about bringing together everybody who needs to be together to resolve an issue in a conversation. Think of a delivery, a barbecue. You got the dispatcher, you got the driver, you got the customer, and they're trying to deal with the fact the customer's not going to be home. And the dispatcher can be communicating with the customer, but the driver needs to know. The driver needs to communicate with the customer as well. The dispatcher needs to know. Well, now we put everybody together in the same conversation so they can communicate. But imagine that done for the literally billions or hundreds of billions of service and other transactions that are happening all the time. The scale of labor that would be required to maintain and manage all those kinds of communications would be staggering. Well, now along comes ChatGPT, and we can insert ChatGPT into the middle of those conversations, and now organizations can be carrying them on all the time. One of our biggest clients is one of the largest automotive roadside service clubs in the United States. They do, tens of millions, 30 million service calls every year. And now they could be using this to allow a smaller number of dispatchers and drivers to be communicating constantly with their customers to go resolve issues. And this, again, is where we see applications happening all up and down the supply chain.
So just run that by me in a little more detail, Doug. In your scenario, where would ChatGPT fit into things?
Yeah. I actually wrote a little blog article, and I gave an example of how this might happen in the future. It's a ways off yet, but mom taps her smartwatch and says, hey, Molly and I are going to the park now and won't be home when that new barbecue arrives. Please set it up in the backyard and take all the packaging. And then the smartwatch responds, no problem. I alerted the store, and they confirmed that the extra work could be included in your price. I also checked with the dispatcher and delivery team, and they confirmed as well. If they have any questions, I'll handle what I can and connect them directly with you for anything else, right? Imagine an agent that could go through and do that. Now, we're quite a ways from being able to do that. And what we're applying first is we're using these language models. Let me take a step back. The amazing things about ChatGPT are three things that they change. First off is what I would call fluency. If you think about all the chatbots you've interacted with, just think about your Alexa in your home. You start to have a conversation with Alexa. She can understand much of what you say, sort of, but she gets it wrong, and she doesn't respond intelligently. As you've experienced, ChatGPT is a whole different level.
Spooky.
And spooky. And GPT-4 is, which has been experienced by some people in the context of Microsoft Bing, is spookier yet. And I think there's an expectation that by the end of the year, we should be at the point where pretty much won't be able to differentiate you won't be able to tell that the computer is talking to you. It'll be the point where you won't be able to tell. So that fluency, that really changes the nature of how humans are interacting with this, and what they expect out of this interaction that they're having with these things. That's first, the fluency. The second is understanding. So again, I'll go to the Alexa example. You go through, and it's very easy to go through and pose a question to Alexa that she just doesn't understand or comprehend in any way. And what you find with ChatGPT, because it's been trained on the breadth of all human knowledge, that ChatGPT pretty much understands everything you're asking it. Now, what's interesting is, ChatGPT, remember, is designed to predict the next word to say. It's not designed to be right. It's not designed to be accurate. It doesn't exist in the real world. One of the things that, the experience of Bing has come out with has highlighted is the potential for these large language models to do what's called to hallucinate, which is the scientific word that the people have come up with to describe when it makes up stuff that it doesn't know. So you got to be careful. And it all comes down to how you construct the prompts and how constrained you can keep it. So if the conversation goes on too long, it may just start to kind of make up stuff because it's trying to come up with the next word. But I think that, those people who can understand the limitations and understand where these models can apply will be able to take advantage of the understanding that is embedded in it. And then I think it's not just the understanding that's embedded in the model at the time it was trained, which is, as a GPT 3.5 was 2021, but the understanding of the other information that you feed to it at the beginning of the conversation. So like you did, when you went through and you fed the transcript and you said, give me a summary of this. Well, you gave it more information that it was able to go ahead and act upon. And I think, so fluency, number one, its ability to understand, and it uses a whole bunch of technology called embeddings and so forth to be able to understand what people are saying. And I'm not the one to go through and describe how that works. You can go read a lot of articles on that on the web. The third area that I think is probably most amazing about it is its trainability. And anybody who has been doing AI for a while has understood that the trainability of these systems can be really complex. Even trying to train up a new skill on Alexa is a non-trivial task to get Alexa to go ahead and be able to do something different. Well, that's changed because with ChatGPT, as you find, you don't have to train it to understand your transcript. You just give it the transcript, and now it has that additional information. What we're doing is we're actually taking some other large language models, and we have had 6 million conversations that have been conducted in Riptide to go do issue resolution. And we're pumping those conversations into an existing large language model that we're doing this together with AWS, with Amazon. And we're going to use that to create basically a model that's trained on the specifics of dispatch communication between a dispatcher and drivers and customers and so forth. And so
Sure.
it'll be expert on how people can respond to that. And we can do that. I mean, it involves a lot of computation, but it doesn't involve a huge amount of human effort to be able to do that.
Gotcha.
So these three things, fluency, understanding, and trainability, really are game changers for this technology that'll make it much more applicable in a wider range. We're going to use it first, given those capabilities now, to understand, number one, when should an agent engage? So imagine those 100 billion conversations coming back at you, and you're an agent trying to figure out, well, which conversation should I pay attention to first? Because I got all these people messaging me. Let's say it's a surge in the morning of your last mile deliveries that are supposed to occur, and they're all on demand. And you got drivers calling you, and you got customers calling you. Well, if I could have something that could look at the conversations and look at all the messages that are coming in from people and say, oh, well, this person just said thank you. You can ignore that one. And this person said, hey, my gate code is this. And this person said, I don't need my order anymore. And this person is really pissed off because of their sentiment. And you can analyze those conversations quickly. You now know where to pay attention. And that you now know when do I need to engage. And there's been a lot of work with sentiment analysis that's been done in the past. What we found is we can actually go in and say, how close is what the conversation is so far to the statement, the customer is satisfied, or the customer has new information. And ChatGPT will come back and immediately tell us, rank order these conversations on the basis of that statement, for example. So when to engage first? The next is how to engage, or rather who to engage. Who should be involved in this conversation? Because remember, we're doing three-way. Oh, should I bring in the driver? Should I bring in the merchant? Should I bring in the warehouse? Who else should be involved in this conversation based upon what's going on? And that goes to this understanding. And then the third is like how to engage. And one of the easiest ones that we're going to be implementing first is just language translation. All of these large language models were developed first to support really accurate language translation. If you think about language translation, people can go through and say, oh, okay, well, the French word for I am is je suis. But, if you're going to say, I am going to the store, well, you're not going to say, je suis going to the store. There's a whole different translation for that, right? And my French is so rusty, I can't remember how to say that. Think about je vais, I think, believe, but whatever.
Yeah.
But it's predicated on understanding the context of the conversation and understanding that much more accurately. And these large language models were designed to go ahead and do that. So one of the things we can use it for is, and one of the big problems you have right now is if you want to go involve a driver in the conversation, but the driver, English is a second language for them, and then you're going to be getting kind of, broken communication. And what if the customer is speaking primarily in Mandarin? Well, we could support a three-way conversation where the customer's speaking in Mandarin, the dispatcher's in English, and the driver's in Spanish, and they're all talking about the same thing and communicating to go resolve the delivery issue.
Well, amazing. Yeah. One of the other first tests I did with ChatGPT was I started speaking to it in Irish. And of course, Irish is a very niche language. Not a lot of people speak it. So I asked it, was it able to speak Irish? And it replied to me in Irish saying, yes, it could speak Irish, but with the proviso that it wasn't as good at Irish as it was at other languages, so it might make some mistakes. So I thought that was fascinating. But I was amazed it could actually understand when I just addressed it in Irish, and it responded in Irish, in perfect Irish. So that was.
I was at
pretty cool.
I was at the Manifest conference in Las Vegas just 2 weeks ago, and we're having lunch, and I was showing this woman who works for a large technology company, but was not aware of ChatGPT. I was just showing it to her on my phone, and you talk about speaking different languages. Well, ChatGPT not only speaks different human languages, ChatGPT speaks different computer programming languages.
Oh,
you can ask ChatGPT to create computer code.
Yep.
And I don't know if anybody's actually on your listeners have actually worked with any of these large supply chain systems. I one of the ones we work with right now is Salesforce, and Salesforce is just it's an enormous system. There's just so much complexity to it. And if you're new to it, you know where to start, but it's incredibly powerful for that reason. But, you could go in and you can ask ChatGPT to go write, a lightning component for you, and you describe what you want, and it will actually write that component. And you can say, what language do you want it to write it? And it'll write it in the right language. So I was showing her how to go through and create computer code. And I said, what's your native language? And she says, oh, it's Mandarin. And I basically said, rewrite this in. We first wrote the code in C#, and then I said, rewrite it as if you're speaking to a Mandarin user. And not only was all the commentary done in Mandarin, but all the error codes were done in Mandarin, still in C#. Just boom, just like that.
Amazing.
It is a powerful tool.
So just to prep for today's episode, because I do occasionally do some prep, I went on to ChatGPT and I said, what are some potential use cases for chatbots such as yourself in supply chain? And ChatGPT responded, there are several potential use cases for chatbots in supply chain management. Number 1, customer service. Chatbots could be used to provide customers with real-time information on their orders, delivery status, and other inquiries. They can handle repetitive and basic customer queries, freeing up customer service representatives to focus on more complex issues. Number 2, inventory management. Chatbots can da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Number 3, supply chain planning, blah, 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 blah. Number 4, supplier management. Number 5, logistics. And then conclusion, overall chatbots can help to automate and streamline various processes in supply chain management, improving efficiency, accuracy, and customer satisfaction. So then I went on and I asked a follow-up question, because Microsoft have said that they're going to allow organizations to upload their own internal data to ChatGPT and train the bot on your own organization's data. So I said, if a chatbot like yourself could be given access to the entirety of an organization's data, how then could it help that organization better manage its supply chain? And ChatGPT replied, if a chatbot like myself were given access to an organization's data, it could help the organization better manage its supply chain in several ways. And it gave me 5 ways. Predictive analytics was the first time, real-time monitoring, process automation, improved communication, and the last one was risk management. And then it gave a summary and so on. So, I mean, boom. I mean, what's really interesting about this, I didn't try it, but I've tried it with other similar scenarios where it gives me a numbered list of things. You can then go back to ChatGPT and say, okay, give me more information on point number 1. And, it'll come up with a much longer use case for number 1 or explanation of number 1 or whatever it is. And you can do that for each of the points. And then if it breaks those into lower points, you can go in and say, okay, give me more details on this. You can dig right down and keep going down into it. The amount of information that it can surface and put out there in, as we said earlier, in spookily human-like verbiage is just insane.
Yeah. Right? We're not going to need to have these podcasts anymore, Tom, because people will just go to ChatGPT and summarize what Doug and Tom might say about how ChatGPT. As we skip Doug and Tom, what do you think? I think what that goes to is, first of all, I think everybody should be interacting with it just to understand what it can do. And I think that those who understand what it can do will be the ones who, just like with any new tool, there were, kids who were using computers and kids who weren't using computers. And those who were using computers had an advantage. Kids who could ride a bicycle could go faster than kids who only could run, right?
Correct.
This is a new bicycle for the mind, as Steve Jobs used to say, right? And we need to understand it, to understand how we can use it so it can help us be more effective and be better.
There's going to be a new role or job come up, prompt engineer, because I had this conversation very early on when talking to someone about ChatGPT, and she was a university professor, and she was saying her university is thinking of banning access to it. And I said, that's exactly the wrong thing to do, because I said,
Cheaper, yes.
your students, when they go out in the real world, are going to be hitting a real world which is using ChatGPT all the time. And if you have denied your students access to this tool, they won't be able to use it in their work. What you should be doing is having like an open book approach to it, where in exams, all the students have access to ChatGPT during the exam. And then the ones who can get the most creative responses or the best responses are the ones who get the highest marks. Hence the term prompt engineer, because the prompt is what you give ChatGPT to get out the answer. So the people who can best use this going forward, or similar tools, are going to be the ones who are going to succeed. To your point about organizations, it's down to individuals as well. The people who can use tools like this the best will be the ones who can get the most advantage from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think some of the things we're looking at is, how can you actually, first off, in response to your point, I agree 100%. And I think there's going to be an initial reaction of let's ban this, let's prevent people from using this in particular situations. And that's a lose-lose. It's going to happen. It's going to be used.
Yeah.
It's already being used. The kids have already figured it out, and they're using it. And the idea of understanding the prompts to get you the right information is really going to be the new art form. It's look, when I first started coding, I was coding in assembly language, and then there was this whole new thing called higher level languages. I was working in BASIC and in Pascal and in Fortran and so forth. And then languages got higher, and you're figuring out how to write in web. Well, now people are going to be figuring out how to write in ChatGPT, as you say. They're going to be figuring out what are the right prompts to be able to get the information that I need right now to help me be more effective. And a couple points on that. If you think about it, what does that mean for websites?
Mm-hmm.
And this has been the point about, the use of ChatGPT in the context of a search engine. If you think about the classic search engine, you go and you type in something through Google and you get a list of all these websites you got to go visit to go find out the information you're really looking for.
Yeah.
Well, what if you could just ask for the information you're looking for? It just told you. I think our children will, and some of our grandchildren will be sitting there going, I understand you guys used to have to visit websites and read things to figure out stuff. Why do you just ask the computer, right? And I think that's going to be the case for a whole variety of kinds of human-computer interaction that are going to occur.
Yeah.
There is an interesting next level of this is where you have ChatGPTs interacting with other ChatGPTs, different chat agents that are working. And one of the things that we're looking at is, especially in the context of, because the way the ChatGPT is working, it's just trying to predict the next word in the conversation. What should it be saying next? All based upon the input it's already received. And let's say it's just responding to you, Tom, as a customer. But now how does it get new information? How does that get inserted into the conversation in a way that doesn't interrupt the conversation I'm having with Tom? Like, it's got a new ETA update. How does that get inserted in there, right? And so one of the things we're looking at is, well, what if you could kind of have like a multi-level conversation happening on where there's a ChatGPT that's getting all this new information from different sources, and then it's also now predicting, okay, what should now be said to the customer? And then that's actually what is pulled out and then presented to the customer at another level for that conversation. But I think there's going to be a lot of different ways in which people are going to begin to use this. One of my colleagues in the venture industry said, when Steve Jobs walked up on stage and introduced the iPhone, it blew us all away. But if you had asked me at that time, what impact would that have on the taxi industry? I don't know, and then a year later, Uber appears, right?
Yeah.
and the taxi industry's gone. And I think there's going to be like, and you and I talked about this the other day. You talked about how you felt like the trend for ChatGPT was going in the wrong direction because it was no longer able to accept as much input as you wanted to give it up front. And it would seem to be operating maybe a little slower. Well, it's because everyone was piling on, right?
Exactly.
And they were just throttling usage because they couldn't keep up. But, this technology is only going to get better and better and better. And so the underlying, computations and engineering that are occurring, we're just at the start of this process. And it's going to be this exponentially improving, glide slope that we're all going to be on for this. The second thing that's going to be happening is going to be all those smart prompt engineers, using their prompt engineering expertise together with their human creativity to come up with a whole host of new applications and new ways in which we can take this new tool, which is, underpins all of human society, our ability to communicate with each other,
Yeah.
and begin to apply it.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah. So
of course, you can't say that without actually having to touch upon, the scary parts of this. With any new powerful technology, from the atom to CRISPR to the discovery of fire, right? It's available for misuse, and I think we've experienced, certainly in the realm of, of Facebook-based misinformation and QAnon and whatever, the ability for people to go use communication and to use language to cause other people to do bad things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we've just placed this amazing tool in everybody's hands, or that could be used, maliciously as well as positively, and that's going to be an interesting thing as well.
Yeah, it's like any of these things. I often say, a knife is great. You can use it for spreading butter on your bread, or you can use it for attacking somebody. It's how you use the tool. But you raised a number of points. You talked about search engines, and I've had access to new Bing now for a number of weeks, and I gotta say, I'm using it all the time. I haven't gone to Google in a long time now since I got it. And it's
Wow.
phenomenal. It really, really is. So, if you can get access to it, I would recommend it. It's significantly better. Now, there have been issues with Bing particularly in the last week, and Microsoft have scaled back some of its abilities because some of the prompt engineers were too good and getting it to say things it shouldn't be saying. So that's been a lot of fun to watch. It now will only give you like 5 follow-up answers to a question, and after that it says, okay, time to start a new chat, and you have to refresh and start over. But apart from that, it's really, really good. Another point you made about ChatGPT itself degrading over time because of its use. So there have been several releases of ChatGPT. There was the first one on the 30th of November. Then there was an update to it on the 9th of January and another on the 30th of January. And with each of the updates, its functionality degraded. And that was my guess on that, was it degraded because, to your point, too many people were using it. They had assigned too many resources to each user, and so they scaled that back, and so it became slightly less useful. So it's not as useful now as it was in late November, early December. Having said that, they have as well now a ChatGPT Plus option. So ChatGPT is free, and that's the basic one, which has had its utility curtailed slightly. The ChatGPT Plus is $20 per month, 20 euros a month here in Europe. It's amazing. I went and tried it out, and I said, you can cancel any time. So I said, for 20 euros, I'll give it a shot. If I don't like it, I just won't renew. So tried it and went, oh yeah, oh boy, I'm keeping this. Oh, absolutely. So ChatGPT Plus is significantly better. If anyone tries ChatGPT and thinks, yeah, this is good, great. If you try it, you think, this is a bit limiting, maybe spend the 20 euros, try out the Plus version and see if that's better, because for me, it was orders of magnitude better. And the other thing I would recommend to people to try out as well is Excel, Microsoft Excel. If you are a Microsoft Excel user, you can go to ChatGPT and say, create a formula for doing boom, 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 whatever it is. I want to do a pivot table for these kind of things. How would I do that? Boom, up it comes. It knows Excel upside down, inside out. So it's not just the programming languages you mentioned, the likes of the Fortrans and C Sharps and all this kind of stuff. It can do that upside down, inside out, no problem. But it can also do the more basic stuff. If you are someone who gets into Excel and you're a heavy programmer of Excel, fantastic, even better. You can start making use of this as well for that, and PowerPoint, and any kind of thing like that. Try everything on it if you're going to try it, because it will make your day so much better. Even email. I've seen people who, were snowed under with emails, and they would just
Sure.
go to ChatGPT and go, I've received an email which says, Blum, I want to answer with something professional sounding, which makes these points. What would a response to that look like? And boom, out comes a lovely formatted email, copy, paste, send, boom, gone. Just
Yeah.
matter of
Yep.
minutes, and you get really good responses to your email out. So it's just, yeah, the use cases are just, they're only limited by your imagination, to use that expression.
It's I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you again in a year. as we look back on all the things that have come about as a result of this. I don't think people understand just how impactful it's going to be. I think you'll find a lot of commentary about what it can't do, a lot of commentary about odd things it can do. I concur with you, Tom. I would just suggest to everybody, dive in, come to your own conclusions. The 99% of amazing awesomeness that it has at this point will be what you will experience. And the 1% of the weirdness is about what all the news media is going to be writing about.
Yeah, very
And
true.
I'm eager to see what comes out of usage in the supply chain. I think it's going to
Yeah.
be, like I said at the beginning, I think it's going to be pretty transformative. I think the supply chain is fundamentally a human experience, even though we're talking about goods and services, and it's going to be humans that are interacting all the way up and down throughout that. And this changes human-computer interaction just fundamentally.
Fundamentally, yeah, agreed. Okay, Doug, we're coming towards the end of the podcast. We've gone way over, in fact, but it's been such an interesting conversation. Anything that I haven't asked that you wish I had, or any aspect of this that we haven't touched on, you think it's important for people to think about?
No, I think we've we've covered. I'd love to be able to come up with something pithy at this point. I probably could ask ChatGPT to summarize this conversation for us, and I'm sure you could maybe ask. Actually, you should. Here's a fun exercise I will suggest. When you're done with this transcript, take that same question and pose it back to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT and add anything it thinks it ought to add to the conversation. Make it at the third party. How about that?
Nice. Yes, I'll try that and see what happens. Interesting. Good.
That's great.
Okay, Doug, that's been great. If people would like to know more about yourself or any of the things we talked about today, where would you have me direct them?
They can go to our website, riptidehq.com. Check out us on LinkedIn as well. We're constantly posting not only on ChatGPT and what it's doing and what that might mean, but also on three-way conversations and just conversations in the supply chain in general.
Doug, that's been great. Thanks a million for coming on the podcast today.
You bet, Tom. Have a good day.